This morning, more than 100 employees of the threatened Katara mill met to discuss their position. They were given a report of yesterday's Rutherford rank and file meeting and later voted on certain resolutions. The workers unanimously supported the decisions of the Rutherford employees, that is, to campaign for the continuity of production and defer any decision on the company's retrenchment pay offer until the outcome of their fight is known. They reinforced the ban on the removal of any machinery from the Rutherford or Katara plants and banned any but emergency maintenance overtime. The workers' hopes now rest on a request to the federal government to convene a meeting of all concerned parties to thrash out what can be done to keep Brad Mill operating in New South Wales. The company's plan is to consolidate its activities in the southern states to improve profitability. Brad Mill chairman, Mr Rod Hartley, flew from Tasmania this afternoon for tonight's meeting with the Minister for Industrial Development at Rutherford. No report of their meeting is yet available. It takes about 40 weeks and specialist skills to rehabilitate a generating unit in a power station. The contract workers have been working most recently on the number 2 generating unit at Vales Point. The Electricity Commission has decided that this will be the last unit rehabilitated for the time being. The 250 megawatt unit should be back in service by Christmas. The 340 workers were expecting to move onto the number 1 turbine boiler, but this unit will now go out of service next year. The Electricity Commission says the decision was made because of financial problems and the oversupply of generating capacity within the state. Len Coates, a state organiser for the Amalgamated Metals Foundry and Shipwrights Union, says many of the men will find it hard to get another job.
The Vales Point people have a core of workforce who have done nothing else but rehabilitation work for about the last 6-7 years. And they tend to become very specialist in that type of work. They see themselves not like the ordinary construction workers. They could do that work if the work was available, but they have become quite skilled in their own field, and it would be very difficult to find work elsewhere.
A telegram has been sent to the Prime Minister, Mr Hawke, the Premier, Mr Rann, and the State Minister for Energy, Mr Sheehan, asking for government assistance and a review of the Commission's rehabilitation policy. Mr Sheehan has arranged top-level talks between Elcom management and a delegation of union representatives in Sydney next Thursday.
Thanks, John. Good morning. A cool start to the day, although at this stage, no rain about, but there are more showers on the way. Around the beaches this morning, I'm afraid all of the open beaches look a bit like a washing machine, very much out of control, a big southerly swell, and waves closing out on those open beaches around 2.5, occasionally 3 metres. We've come to one of the protected beaches this morning here at Nobby's. The waves are quite a deal smaller, around 1.5 metres, and there's also a little bit of protection from the wind. So for the board riders, if you're super keen, it's those southern protected corners, Stockton, Nobby's and Blacksmiths, unless you're prepared to travel out of town. You'll also find some good waves to the north and south of Newcastle. If you'd like to go for a swim again this morning, it's bars only, I'm afraid, and Merriweather Beach once again has that pollution problem. As far as the weather's concerned, we have a high pressure system centred over Western Victoria at the moment, and it's moving east-northeast, and there's a low pressure system, or a centre of low pressure. It's northeast of Lord Howe Island, and it's producing that strong southerly flow along the New South Wales coast. The forecast for today reads cool to cold day with scattered showers, chiefly in the lower Hunter. Southwest to southerly winds at 15 to 25 knots, that's 30 to 50 kilometres per hour, but slowly easing. A strong wind warning is still current for coastal waters north of Newcastle, and seas will be moderate to rough but abating on a moderate swell. Newcastle expecting a top today of 14 degrees, 13 degrees for Scone. Low tide coming up at 9:45 this morning, 0.5 of a metre. High tide at 4:24 this afternoon, 1.6 metres. And the outlook for Friday, a dry day with early frosts. Well, that's the story. No waves again for the board riders to speak of unless they're prepared to travel. Southern protected corners only. Here at Nobby's, waves around 1.5 metres. The wind's blowing from the south at the moment. They look like they're going to stay that way all day, and the open beaches are just choppy and look like a bit of a washing machine. Have a great day whatever you're doing. A top of 14 degrees, just about 1 degree warmer than yesterday. We'll be back again tomorrow morning.
Those who attended the conference at the Gosford Leagues Club were confronted with some staggering figures. The unemployment rate on the Central Coast is twice the national average and still rising. And at the same time, the population of the region is increasing at a steady 5% per annum. Growth that is creating a need for more employment opportunities.
Well, the unemployment situation, which as I said before is about twice the national level, running at 16%. And with all the attributes that this area has, we felt certain there must be ways of creating employment.
Today's conference dealt with the causes of the jobless problem as well as with ways of countering it. Some speakers felt government policies were retarding economic growth, while others blamed what they described as the unrealistic expectations of employees. The main aim of the conference, however, was to look at what could be done within the Central Coast community to create jobs. In his address, Mr. Roger Hemming, the managing director of the image company Hemming International, pointed to promotion as the first positive step.
I think there are several ingredients that come together to make a solution. The first and most important is to bring the work to the people. There is an available workforce here. There's between 16 and 19,000 unemployed people. One of the quickest ways is to transfer government departments from Sydney. They're not needed in Sydney. They can work equally as well, if not better, here on the Central Coast. The other thing is to stimulate the interest of industrial corporations and other commercial activities, other areas of commerce to come to Gosford and the Central Coast. Not just Gosford, but the Central Coast.
The Energy Authority has placed a ceiling on any increase in the standing charge and energy rates of 7% for domestic consumers, while the increase in the commercial and industrial charge will be pegged to a maximum of 5%. The motive behind this is the authority's attempt to reduce the inequity between commercial, industrial and domestic tariffs, which at the moment is heavily weighted in favour of domestic. The Council must set its new tariff by the 1st of October because the Energy Authority has decreed that the rate existing on that date shall remain until the beginning of 1985. The County Clerk, Mr Warren Elliott, said in his report that the recently announced increase in the Electricity Commission's bulk supply charges will cost the Shortland County Council an estimated additional $2.1 million for 1983, and that based upon an anticipated growth rate of 2% would cost the County Council an additional $9.7 million in 1984. If the rise is the maximum 7% for domestic consumers, the increase on the average quarterly bill would be somewhere in the order of $10. However, there's always the possibility the rise will not be as great as that.
I think there's every chance it'll be less than the 7%, but I wouldn't like to predict it at this point of time, but it won't be any greater than the 7%.
Good evening. Probably the most qualified club to figure in the semi-finals this year will be the Maitland Club, as far as player strength is concerned. You know, the Pickers have bought very well in 1983, and they also have a number of locals with plenty of ability. Robert Finch, the town's class player, is the man in charge. He has that vital experience. He has a marvellous football brain and the natural ability, although he is yet to prove that he does have the ability to lift others when they're under severe pressure to win on the day. That's no criticism, as Finchy would no doubt agree. He has a great record. He's been there in better company. He knows what it is to win on the day. But can he lift his semi-professionals to that feeling? That is the big question. If a team is to win, they need to have a couple of dominant players. Maitland have them. Greg Guider, Shane Matthews, Peter Walsh, David Trewella, Milton Burrows, Phil Amity, to name a few. Players with above average ability. But they do, or seem to have, a lack of attitude at vital times, a lack of urgency, a lack of winning knowledge maybe. Can they do it at crunch time? That's the only unanswered question, and that can only be answered on the park on the day. This weekend they play South tomorrow at Townsend Oval, with Curry opposed to Lakes United in a very important match at Bulldog Land. Curry, of course, are not yet certain of a final five position. On Sunday, Waratah Mayfield play Cessnock, Macquarie play North Newcastle, and Western Suburbs are opposed to Central at Harker Oval.
Jack has spent most of his life in Broken Hill. He was introduced to the Australian outback when he was just 4 years old. After spending the first 40 years of life as a kangaroo shooter, he's now a successful painter, author and television host, having recorded a number of shows for the ABC. How do you make the transition from kangaroo shooter to landscape artist? Jack explains.
We're having dinner. The kids want their dinner about 5:30. And I waited about the sweets time, and I said, look, got some news. As from today, I'm going to be a professional artist. Well, there was a dead silence at the table. And my eldest daughter, who was 19, she was doing a leaving. And she said to her mother when I went out, she said, like, the son must have got to Dad, he's gone bonkers. Like, that couldn't happen, see? So anyway, I treated it like I treat everything else, went in boots and all. And within 12 months, I was forced to build an art gallery to get the people out the house.
Today, 60,000 people visit his gallery each year in Broken Hill. His book, Outback Paintings, reproduces a fine collection of work by this bush brushman. Jack's also an authority on travel in the great Australian outback, but says most of us venture west without the right kind of preparation.
Well, I think basically the big fault is they don't plan the thing, they don't put any thought into it. See, look, if they're going for a trip overseas, they will get all the information they can, and they'll probably know more about England or Ireland or wherever they're going to than they know about anything.
And would you believe one of his best-selling books is a collection of outback recipes, such mouth-watering delicacies as kangaroo tail stew with dumplings, a hearty roast leg of kangaroo, or the famous kangaroo rissoles, complete with tomato sauce. Dr. David Armstrong is the General Manager of the Australian Bicentennial Authority. He says Newcastle is well advanced in its plans for a major project and funds are on the way.
Well, every community in Australia will plan and manage its own celebrations, and it'll be up to the City of Newcastle to decide how it wishes to participate in the Bicentenary. Already, however, the New South Wales Government has indicated that it wishes to put $6 million into the development of the foreshore here in the city to serve as an enduring legacy of the Bicentenary. In addition to that, of course, there'll be fun and games, touring exhibitions, national, international, sporting activities, major conventions right around Australia. We're putting a particular emphasis on young people, tree planting, learning more about Australia. All in all, it'll be a very good year.
I believe it could also be a double celebration for the city of Newcastle.
Well, that'll be the 1988 is the 50th anniversary of the incorporation of the greater city area, so that gives Newcastle a chance to have two birthday parties instead of one, and we'd hope that they'll use that anniversary as an opportunity to participate in the Bicentenary and to make it meaningful at the local level. I think that's very important.
Dennis Peel works in a field of entertainment known as community theatre, which can involve all ages. It includes circus skills, clowning, mask work, just about anything you can do in the street for the enjoyment of other people. He and his partner Steve Caplan have formed a company called Street Arts Community Theatre and are in Newcastle until Tuesday to run workshops and seminars. I talked to Dennis Peel about their work.
Generally we go into an area and spend 4 to 6 weeks in working with the people in that area on circus work and other types of theatre and devising a theatre piece which is performed to the community by the community.
Do you think community theatre is a growing thing?
Oh yeah, I think there's enormous potential for it.
A team come from Brisbane and were invited to Newcastle by the newly formed Steel City Circus to help train as clowns. They have worked full-time in this art form throughout Australia and say being funny is a deadly serious business. Novocastrians can get to see the result of all this hard work when Dennis and Steve perform as the Manly Brothers at local venues tomorrow afternoon and Monday night. As for the Steel City Circus, well, you'll just have to wait until Katara.
Set aside for netball. New South Wales Treasurer Ken Booth, himself a former sportsman and Minister for Sport, opened
hockey and netball, we rank very, very highly internationally. Netball, only a few weeks ago, Australia won the World Championship. In hockey, I think we came within the first 3. So to represent your state in a country that has such a high standard of performance, I think is a reflection on your own particular ability.
The 16-year-old girls will battle it out all week, except for Wednesday, when they will take in the sights of Newcastle, Port Stephens and the Williamtown RAF base. The round-robin carnival closes next Sunday afternoon.